I've noticed the difference between Nintendo's games back then versus Sega's games. Now, if you take a look at it, like Sega targeted more of the older audiences with games like Mortal Kombat. And then if you take a look at Nintendo, they were focusing more on the family friendly games. You know what I mean? Like they would always put out games like Legend of Zelda or your Mario Brothers. You know what I'm saying? Don't you find it odd that they kind of collaborated like that? Well, that I mean, for what I've been learning mostly here recently, though, that was kind of like the whole reason behind the crash that we were talking about last week in 1983, or not that, but it was oversaturate. Like they said that the reason for that though was because of freaking oversaturation, and then there was a decline in game quality, which I can see happening today. Even like you take a look at these games, and they're just freaking horrible. Like there's no storylines, nothing. And it kind of goes into what you were saying right there, and then what I was talking about with Sega and Nintendo too. You know, or what you guys brought out when I was mentioned it because well, also, I'm going to have to use a famous Mark Edworthy thing and say that this was mostly all about marketing. It was just marketing. Well, see, I disagree on the whole thing about Nintendo having better graphics because I was an old Mortal Kombat fan, and that's the reason why I didn't mention it when I posted on Skype with the things. I just put the other stuff about the internet gaming on there, but I wanted to mention Mortal Kombat. Now, I was cool with Mortal Kombat, and I was perfect, you know. And it's like recently I've been doing project or I was doing projects with a friend of mine, Rapid Glitch, who does Nostalgia Gaming Retro, and he had me doing like first he wanted me to do Nuzlocke with Pokemon, and I was fine with that after I did it. But then he started getting into these randomizers. Since you guys were talking about emulators, he was wanting to do randomizers with Pokemon Gen 2, and then we had to do randomizers is where I call them assets, but it randomizes all the assets and stuff. And I had a horrible experience with that when it comes to Pokemon and then Legend of Zelda. We actually couldn't finish the Legend of Zelda, the Oculus of Time or whatever it is, because of these randomizers. And now Rapid, he's just like a big old Scottish sissy. You know what I mean? He loves these these Nintendo games, and I hate the Legend of Zelda with a passion. You know, I hate that game, and but I went ahead and I did it, and even though I did it, I still hated that freaking game, dude. I hated it with passion. Now I can handle the Mario's somewhat, but I don't really get into them too much. But out of the two of them, even today, man, I would rather play Mortal Kombat or Street Fighters over Super Mario Brothers any day, you know. And well, I mean, I would still play them, even though I'm not. Well, I'm not. You know, I'm not any better at it anymore than what I used to be. I'd have to catch up on it and stuff. I mean, with me, it would have to be commercial, or not commercial, but basically, it would have to be just advertisement. You know what I mean? It would have to be marketing and stuff like that that would be involved with it because personally, I did like the Sega systems better than I did the Nintendo. Uh, but I think in the end, it was the marketing that won out. You know, above everything else, they were able to market their stuff. It really does stick out to me on it. And then like the thing that I know is like Midway Games. Now, Midway Games is what we were talking about last week, if you remember. It goes all the way back to 1958. These guys actually freaking were the ones who came out with games like Mortal Kombat, and I thought that was pretty interesting to bring up too. Um, they and that's the weird part about it when it comes to Midway. Like they didn't start out just in like video gaming either. They were big on things like, you remember Defender, don't you? In Joust. Back in the 90s, though, that brings us into how PC gaming led the way in the 1990s. The internet and PC gaming is what really sticks out with it. On not console to internet, much less, but just like the straight internet gaming. The internet's proliferation of the 1990s unlocked new possibilities for gaming, particularly on PC. Games like Doom 1993 and Quake in 1996 introduced network multiplayer experiences, allowing players to face off in competitive matches. Now, with Quake and Doom, I just recently played those again, and it was really interesting because it had been a long time since I played the original Doom, and well, not Doom actually, but Quake. I did find that pretty interesting because I hadn't played it in years. I went on and did a group battle that we did on Nostalgia Gaming, and I don't know, it felt kind of cool doing it. We had fun and everything, but it was just kind of weird because I hadn't done it before, or done it in a while. And I thought that was actually pretty cool, and we actually did it on a Steam game where they have new features for going in there and playing Steam. Here recently, my son was showing me how they have new features in some of these older games to where you can actually see the game, the newer versions of the game, because they put new textures and stuff to make it look better. And they have an option too to where if you don't want that, you can actually revert it back to the retro look, the way it used to look whenever you played the game originally. And I thought that was really, really good. That's something that if you guys are interested in looking at, you might want to go check it out on Steam. They've got Quake, they've got the original Doom as well. There was a few other ones on there that are on there. I know that right now I'm on a project with Rapid with Elder Scrolls Arena. And just to let you guys know, you can go on and you can play Elder Scrolls Arena on Steam for free if anybody's an old Elder Scrolls Arena fan. I just got halfway through it, and I'm starting up on getting the other half done now in January. I did the first half back in 2004, so that is going to be my first project for this year when it comes to gaming. I'm still at the point now where I'm wanting to get back into my live streams with my games. I got tons of new games to play, but I just haven't had the time. It's all of this uploading videos and editing and getting it off my computer that's slowing me down. I had maybe 5 gigabytes of memory left, so I had to transfer videos and start getting busy with it and start editing and getting it uploaded onto the computer so that I could get this done, so the advent of massive multiplayer online role-playing games, MMORPGs, were another significant milestone. Titles like Ultima Online in 1997 and EverQuest in 1999 created persistent worlds where thousands of players could interact simultaneously. It just seems really weird to me though that they ended up losing out when it came to Nintendo versus Sega because of how much they, because I mean even Joust, you remember Joust when we were kids, right? I know I kind of got into conspiracy last week, but like you guys also have to remember WMS Industries, okay? Now these guys were the ones that came out with pinball machines and stuff, okay? So these guys were really involved with Midway, and they were the movers and shakers. And like you know how I was talking about Pong, like they actually branched out and was a part of all that when they developed Pong. And if you take a look at the history with Pong, that's where Magnavox came into the whole game play too, because they were using it previously for another thing they were using in the colleges and playing. They called it ping pong, but college students would sit and play these games so that the military could research their response times. You know, I just find it odd that it all comes all the way up to games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighters and stuff like that. It does seem kind of awkward that that was kind of happening, and WMS Industries was all involved in that stuff through Midway. But I know that kind of goes off into the whole conspiracy thing again. But it just seems odd, when it's in your face. You know what I mean? How can you look away at that? I do find it kind of odd, especially like most people who are into computers don't realize how far back this goes. You know what I mean? Unless they actually do research on the history of computers and gaming together. Well, I mean, even being there at the time, like most people who get on computers and do, that they were doing all this crazy shit back then. I mean, at the same time as developing computers, they were putting out these games so that the military could like do research and stuff on some stupid college student smoking dope and playing ping pong. Well, I mean, it was the 1960s, dude. Seriously, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying back then. It's really interesting to see the history of all this and how it unfolded. It really is. Like, I still look at some of these games and I'm like, man, it just amazes me that people have no idea what actually took place for them to sit and play that game. So now you've opened up a can of whoop ass. This brings us to Doom and Quake. Okay, now we're going to talk about the '90s. This is the stuff you guys like because you were kids and stuff and having fun. Hell yeah, I'm still waiting until the time where I start mugging people. Just be able to run out and randomly frickin' steal a car, bam, down the road I go. There was another one too. I remember where it was you were in a car and you couldn't get out of the car unless you had to go and listen to a storyline somewhere. But you drove around the city in this car, and that was it. You had to go from one point to the other, and the cops would chase you and stuff like that. And I forgot the name of it, but I remember Retro Cheat played it. Um, No, it sounds familiar. I do remember hearing a. Let me. Actually, yeah. I just Googled it and everything. I remember.